The room went silent the moment the waitress dropped the silver pitcher. It struck the marble floor with a sharp metallic crash, and every head inside the luxurious hotel restaurant turned toward her. But she wasn't looking at the broken pitcher. She was staring at the billionaire seated at the center table, her face pale with fear. Around him sat two elderly German businessmen, his private security team, and the translator who had been trusted to finalize a deal worth nearly $500 million. Then, with trembling hands, the waitress stepped closer and whispered the words that would change everything: "Your translator is lying." The billionaire froze. The translator's face went white. If you believe kindness, courage, and second chances can change someone's life, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, the person everyone overlooks is the only person brave enough to tell the truth. The waitress was named Elena Carter, and unlike everyone else in that elegant restaurant, she had no expensive suit, no powerful connections, and no seat at the negotiation table. She was 28 years old, worked 2 jobs, and spent most of her evenings serving wealthy guests who rarely looked at her face. She had learned to become invisible. Her mother had been sick for years, and Elena had quietly taken on every responsibility she could, paying rent, buying medicine, and caring for her younger brother after school. She was exhausted almost every day, but she never complained. Her mother had always told her that dignity wasn't something rich people owned. It was something you carried inside yourself. That afternoon, the restaurant had been transformed for one of the most important business meetings in the city's history. A famous American billionaire named Adrian Cole had arrived to finalize a partnership with an influential German manufacturing family. The deal would create thousands of jobs and expand Adrian's company into Europe. Everyone knew the meeting had to succeed. Adrian's translator, Victor Hale, had worked with him for years and was considered indispensable. He spoke fluent German, understood international business customs, and had earned Adrian's complete trust. Elena had been assigned to the private dining room. She moved quietly between the tables, serving coffee and water while listening to fragments of conversation she didn't fully understand. She knew only basic German from childhood lessons her mother had given her. Her mother had once worked as a language teacher before illness forced her to stop. Elena remembered sitting beside her at the kitchen table, repeating German phrases until she could pronounce them correctly. Those lessons had seemed useless for most of her life. Until that afternoon. As Victor translated the German businessman's words, Elena suddenly noticed something strange. His English translation didn't match the German sentence she had heard. She stopped walking. The German businessman had said that his family was prepared to accept Adrian's revised contract if one particular condition was removed. Victor translated it as if the businessmen were demanding an additional financial payment. Elena wondered if she had misunderstood. She kept working, telling herself not to interfere. People like her didn't interrupt billion-dollar negotiations. They didn't challenge men in tailored suits. They certainly didn't accuse a respected translator of lying. But then she heard another sentence. One of the German businessmen spoke firmly about protecting his family's workers and keeping the company's historic factory open. Victor translated it completely differently, making it sound as though the man was threatening to cancel the agreement unless Adrian surrendered controlling ownership. Adrian's expression hardened. The German businessman looked increasingly frustrated. The deal was beginning to collapse. Elena's heart pounded. She remembered her mother's voice telling her that knowing something was wrong and staying silent were 2 different kinds of choices. She looked toward Victor, then toward Adrian, and finally at the elderly German businessman whose face showed the same confusion she felt. She stepped forward. The room immediately became tense. Victor demanded to know what she was doing, and one of Adrian's guards moved toward her. Elena almost backed away. Her hands shook so badly that she could barely breathe. But she looked at Adrian and told him that she understood enough German to know that the translation was wrong. Victor laughed and accused her of trying to ruin the meeting. He told Adrian she was merely a waitress who had misunderstood a few words. Everyone stared at Elena as though she had embarrassed herself in front of the most powerful people in the room. Then Adrian asked her one question: how could she possibly know? Elena explained that her mother had been a German language teacher and that she had grown up hearing the language. She wasn't claiming to be an expert. She only knew that the words Victor had translated did not mean what he said they meant. Adrian looked at Victor and asked him to translate one sentence again. Victor did. Then Adrian turned to Elena. She gave the correct meaning. The German businessmen exchanged a shocked glance. One of them slowly nodded. Adrian's face changed. He asked Victor to translate another sentence. Again, Victor gave an answer. Again, Elena corrected it. This time, the older German businessman stood and spoke directly to Adrian, explaining that they had never demanded more money. They had been asking Adrian to guarantee that their workers would not be abandoned after the merger. The room went completely silent. Victor had not simply made a mistake. He had deliberately changed the meaning of their words. Adrian's security team immediately checked the contract history. Hidden inside the documents was a clause that would have allowed Victor and one of his business associates to profit enormously if the German partnership collapsed. Victor had been manipulating both sides, hoping to create distrust and then sell information to a competing company. Adrian felt betrayed. He had trusted Victor for 7 years. But what shocked him even more was the person who had saved the deal. Elena. The billionaire looked at her and realized how easily everyone had dismissed her because of her uniform. She had been standing in the room all along, invisible to people who believed importance came from money. Adrian asked the German businessman to continue the negotiation with Elena present. This time, every sentence was translated honestly. The misunderstanding disappeared. The German family agreed to the partnership, and Adrian promised that the workers and historic factory would be protected. The deal was signed that evening. But Elena didn't celebrate. She quietly returned to the restaurant kitchen, collected her belongings, and prepared to go home. She had spent the entire day terrified that she would lose her job. Adrian found her near the staff entrance. Instead of offering her money, he asked about her mother. Elena froze. She explained her situation, admitting that she had been working 2 jobs because her mother's medical bills were overwhelming. Adrian listened without interrupting. Then he offered Elena a position in his company's international relations department, with language training and a salary that could change her family's life. Elena initially refused. She didn't want charity. Adrian smiled and told her it wasn't charity. He was offering her a chance because she had earned it. Months later, Elena's mother sat in the front row at a company ceremony where Elena received her first international assignment. Her mother cried as she watched her daughter walk onto the stage. Elena looked back at her and remembered those old kitchen table lessons. The German words that once seemed like simple homework had become the words that saved a billion-dollar deal. And perhaps the greatest lesson wasn't about money at all. It was about how easily society overlooks people who serve others quietly. Sometimes the person carrying the silver pitcher knows more than the person sitting at the head of the table. Sometimes courage doesn't wear a suit. Sometimes the voice that saves the day is the one nobody thought was important enough to hear. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe so we can continue bringing you stories that remind us that kindness and courage still matter. And before the story ends, comment, "Courage has no uniform," if you believe everyone deserves to be heard, no matter who they are or where they come from. Because Elena didn't save a billionaire that day. She saved the truth. And in doing so, she finally discovered something her mother had known all along: your circumstances may determine where you begin, but your courage can decide where you end.